Hey, what's going on, y'all? Back with another one. Back with another one. Let's see. Let's see. We'll see what we got here. Yeah. We're going to talk about Elon Part One. Elon Part One. Yeah, but see what's going on, y'all. But it's a lot going on in the world. Appreciate people coming through as always. And pre-records is up and down sometimes, but that's normal. That's YouTube and they little algorithm. A lot of people start to say, "Oh, you do like you do this, you do it." No. It's just I've been on here a long time, and people are saturated with mics and things like that. Everything is down. Everybody's stressing out overseas and things like that. I've been chilling, but I had to drop this one for you. I had to drop this one. Let me see something real quick. I'm gonna share a screen and I'm gonna get this out the way. I'm not gonna be on it too long. And yeah, right quick. Before we're gonna get into right quick, I'm just gonna big this up for y'all and let's get on with it. Let's get on with it. It just goes to show you that people don't understand what's going on. But we don't want to get into the racial background of it. We already know. I mean, I can do a whole live stream on that. Another that like to still exist in the Iran, they said, right? But they said the concerning literature, we're gonna read this. Egyptians at the time, right? Sumerians, Mohendorans, and Harappans, and Cretans, and Elamites, and Nubians were literally 3,000 years, 4,000 years, who knows how many thousands of years before the world have ever heard of Greeks and Romans at this time, right? This is the dark nations that are, but there are different sets of the nations of the sub nations. Like in the scripture, you already know one of these could be, um, they would say like Japhet, Ham, and Sumerians. We already know they're Semitic. We already know, or they said Shemites or Semitics, how they would say today. But it doesn't matter. That was the standard back then. But now it's like you have four different groups of people based off the so-called white man's culture. Like you got I don't like to use the Negroid and Mongol and all this other stuff, and then Australoid or Austra law or something like that. And then you got four layers of nations, right? A lot of confusion, right? But see, back in the day, it was just simple. You had dark nations, the ones who wasn't dark, they were excluded, but they were other groups of people, right? But you do have those people. That's what they call themselves. Languages is different back then. It's a different world back then. And there's ample, they say ample evidence of their literacy. They have their own literacy. All Sumerian tablets, you name it, Phoenicians, all that alphabet. It's all, research on this channel. Shouts out to Real History, www.com. And the research that he provided me for decades. And I had to learn to dissect information. I'm just teaching you from a modern perspective now because everything's out. Everybody's quoting this. And then I can go back to these videos because I did tons of pre-records on this and I did tons of streams on this as well. I'm not going to go too long today. Yet there is not one single entry describing any of the people of their times, whether it be friends, foes, or invaders, or even more indiscretionally, there is not one single entry describing invading whites in any of their literature. And there's some truth to that. Contrast with the Greek and Roman writings, in which they said that these newly literate people describe everything and everyone. The discrepancy is, of course, not anecdotal. It says not accidental. He said, excuse me. The discrepancies of course, is not accidental, nor for the lack of material. There you go. Hopefully, the white man has simply withheld the material and not to destroy it. He's withheld it. It's a lot of them withheld it, and some of it's destroyed. A lot of it's withheld. See, like I said, you got to do the research. Like this site right here is as close as you can get. There's other websites can back. I haven't found it yet, but I'm still working on seeing if there's more information. I'm using this as a reference of this channel that I can talk about Dark Nation. That's close you can get. And other information, other sources, they point you to other sources as well. So cultural structure, little known as the culture of Iran during the early Bronze Age. However, it is clear that during the early periods of the rugged, broken landscape of the Iranian plateau, forcing the man to the very forced man into variety of relatively isolated cultures, but these cultures did not participate in the developments that led to the fully urban civilization in Egypt. Mesopotamia to their west or the Indus Valley to their Indus Valley to their south, right? And then you see the alabaster head of the African goddess found in Prestopolis right here, and then you have this other art over here, the 4000 BC, the Susa bowl, right? I'm gonna do this, and that's what it says right in this. Okay, except for Elam is which says for which temporarily for the neighboring culture is very easy. And then here they have same level of civilization as their neighbors, but with the same agricultural, with the same architectural. Elamites built the ziggurats. Yeah, the Elamites built the ziggurats too. Yeah, they have a hand in it too. Not just people from Samaria, Elamites as well. They build ziggurats as well. That's a thing back then. It's kind of like the pyramids in a sense. But the same technology in the mathematics and science, they use the same technology. That's what they said, right? And mathematics and science, right? The center of Elam was, and what is now Kyrgyzstan, right? He said the center of Elam was, and what is now Kyrgyzstan, though geographically Elam included more of the Kyrgyzstan, it was a combination of lowlands and the intermediate, yeah, lowlands and intermediate highlands, areas of the north and east. But the major cities Elam were, they said the Elam were Awan, Ashan, Simash, Susa, and Susa later became Elam's capital. That's what we see up here with the bowl. That's what that's from, right? And the model of the temple called the Sit Shamish Shemshai, made of the ceremony of the rising sun, 12th century BCE at Louvour. But the large bronze and showed the religious ceremony and such in 12th BC. Okay. So the ceremony made figurines were the bronze slab one knee and one on the ground. One of the figurines hold out to the hands of the companion who prepares for the poor continents of the sibling we're onto that has taken place to reduce the scale, architectural structures and all that. Okay. Let me step away real quick. I'll be right back. I gotta check out what that is. He said, found the slab, one knee, focus and companion, perhaps contains a lift from on. Okay. The scene takes place in a stylized urban landscape, but was reduced scale. But the agricultural features have tiered the terrace tower of the ziggurat and flanked with pillars. In temple, a high fence, and there's also large resembling to the cremic pithol and decorated with the aromatis, but they were used to their store year water. But the liquid of food stuff and artificial stand by some rectangular basin rows. But if dots of relief and may represent the footstuffs on altars and jagged sticks representing the trees. But the men's bodies are delicately modded from the faces clean shaven and their shaved heads speckled. They said speckled with the shadow of the hair. But their facial expression and is serene and their eyes open, with the hints of the smile on their lips. But the inscription tells us that the name of this place, Royal Dedicator, and its meaning in the part of Part I think Shinshek, Inshushank, son of Shushek, and Nanshu, below servants of the Inshushinshek, king of Ashan and Susa. I will make a bronze surprise. And it says the Kolkia Sambia, a religious capital. But the context work found on Susa's Acrylos is unclear, but it may have been reused in the memory of the tomb. But in associated with the funerary of the sanctuary, it appears to be related to Elam in practice. But they were brought to the light in the excavations of the Kuka Zambia, or something like Zambil, and sites and house remains of the secondary capital found by the Untosh, Untosh Napnisha dynasty in the 14th century BCE, but some kilometers east of Susa towards the rising sun. But the sacred complex, including a ziggurat and temples, enclosed when a precinct featured elements on the Esplanade roads, pillars, and similar sites and funerary places, and vaulted tombs. But it has also been there. That's what it says, right? In the Royal Middle Eastern period. I mean, the royal art of the Middle Elam period. And it says the same thing with the 12th century BCE. I'm not going to read all that in Great Susa. And of course, y'all know that I've read some of that. I'm going to skip that entirely, but I'm just saying, but that's what it is. And then Elam's strength, we're going to read that just a second, see what's going on. And I'm just like looking what's happening here. Okay. Elam's strength was based on its ability to hold these various areas together under a coordinated government that permitted the maximum interchange of the natural resources that were unique to unique to each region. Elam was in Elam was as Afghanistan is today. Let's read that again. Elam was as Afghanistan is today the world's major source of the lapis lazuli, which was greatly prized, right? Traditionally, this was done through a federal government structure, but closely related to this form of government was the Elam system of the inheritance and power distribution. But the power pattern of government for Elam was that the king was that of a king or overlord or ruling over vassal princesses. See, it's kind of like in America, right? We still in Afghanistan ruled that, right? So basically, Afghanistan was the modern day what Elamite culture is. What you see today in the riches, it's based off what it's read right here, and it's pretty accurate of what's going on. And I'm not saying that to be saying, I'll be saying that, but that's factually true what's going on. But a lot of people don't know that's just the culture was back then. I try to tell you, certain areas had a lot of provinces like that. And then you see it afterwards. It's still a main source to this day. I try to tell you the Mesopotamia close to Asia period was standard. Before they called it Africa, it was named after Scipio Africanus when the second Punic War and then the third Punic War, you already know the dominance of the rest. So talk about that a lot with Hannibal and recently done Hannibal stuff and all this other stuff. So that's what it says. It's the same thing we see in most countries. In the earliest time, the king was required to live in Susa, which functioned as a federal capital. With him ruled his brother closest in age and viceroy. They said right, and the viceroy who usually has made usually has a seat of the government in the native city, but of the currently ruling king. But this viceroy was a higher presumptively to the king. But yet the third official to the regret princes of Susa, the district shared power with the king and the viceroy, but he was usually the king's son, or if not, if no son was available, his nephew. On the death of the king, but the viceroy became king. But the prince of Susa remained in office. The brother or the old viceroy nearest to him in age became the new viceroy, only if all brothers were dead. But was the princes of Susa promoted to the viceroy, thus enabling the king to the name of his own or nephew as the new prince of Susa. But such a complicated system of a governmental checks and balances and power inheritance often broke down despite bilateral bilateral descent, descent. Yeah, bilateral descent and lavorate marriages and complementary marriages of a widow to her deceased husband's brother. But what is remarkable is how often the system did work. It was only in the middle and the neo Elamite periods. They said it worked in the middle and the neo Elamite periods. That the sons more often succeeded fathers to the power, but the Elamite people were closely tied culturally otherwise to the Mesopotamian, and later perhaps because of the domination by the Akkadian dynasty of the 2334 to 2154 BCE period. They said Akkadian dynasty period. We talked about that on the Sumer parts of this recordings we did. If you go back to the Sumer, I talk about the Akkadians and things like that in certain parts of. Y'all can check that out on yourself. But I mentioned them as a part, and then we're talking about Elam. This part we're going to talk about them just a bit because this is not going to be a long series. I'm gonna tell you that much. This is not going to be very long, and I might do two recordings. I don't know if I'm going to do two recordings at all because I don't celebrate, the indigenous stuff. I might talk a little bit about it because November we're going to talk about a lot of stuff. The Elon period ain't gonna last. It's only got 5 parts. Okay, so we got part one, part two, the other Wednesday, and then that's it. We're not gonna stay into it. I'll be done with this the whole year and do a different pre-recorded setting and expound on the historical stuff that I talked about. So yeah, it's expounding Akkadians and all that. So Elamites adopted the Sumerian Akkadian system of writing from your script. See, like I said, we just talked about the Sumerians and the Akkadian system. You go to the Sumerian page, we talked about that in parts. You can watch all of that. Elamites adopted Sumerian Akkadian system of the writing of the Conformium script. And they did. This is a cultural back then when it was something. As you can see, the figurines and things like that. So you basically got a time where things was. So back then, you got to know that's a cultural thing. I'm not saying that to be saying, I'm just saying that I've been doing this stuff for a long time. So normally, little is known for the Elamite pantheon, but except to say the Elamites have many excursions into Sumer, but we're very fond of carrying off a huge Sumerian statues of their gods, but installing them to Susa. Consequently, perhaps that the best way to think of the Elamites and their cities is simply the extension of Sumer and its cities. But the two countries were culturally pretty much the same. Yeah, they're pretty much the same. That's what they damn near. They're very similar, pretty much the same. And the people were ethnically the same, as attested to by the later Assyrian reliefs of the two people in the appearance and dress. They are indistinguishably one from the other, one from the other. Only difference you can tell is Elam has a lot of Sumerian, because like I said, they're Semitic people at the time. They adopted a lot of their gods and rituals and things like that. They're very similar, because if you look at Elam on this website, Elam and Sumer right next door to each other. So you have Iraq, Iran next to each other. Like what you got Muslim country today is based off those principles that the Arabs wasn't there. See, the Assyrian period, a lot of people, the Akkadian period, we're talking about people that like it says, it's singles in the singles with one another. They're like one and the same. They're like inseparable. That's the Elamite god figurine, similar to the Sumerian god. So it's kind of interesting what they say. This is part one. So from each other. And so yeah, you got this piece right here, molded creek brick, and that's it. And then politically, Elon was closely involved with Sumer. He said Akkad and Assyria. It was close to Assyria, like what you say Syria today. It says Elon was closely involved with the Sumer, Akkadian, Achaia, and Assyria sometimes through the peaceful trade. Yeah, they trade with each other. That's why, and more often through war. In a matter like Elon was one participant in the events of the Iranian plateau, but these involvements were related to combined need of lowland and civilizations to culturally to control the warlike peoples to the east. But they exploit the economic resource of the plateau. But the earliest kings in the old Elamite period may have dated to approximately 3000 BCE, already conflicted with Sumer, especially with the city of Ur. They fought the people of Ur. They did. We talked about that in those parts. You can look that up. Was characteristics of the Elamite history. But in one case, according to the Sumerian king list, the Sumerians king um, Inbed Baragasi, we talked about him. We talked about him in the parts, right? And Gassi made last month. We talked about him last month. Made Elam to submit the early Susa rulers, succeeded by Awan, Shustar dynasty, right? At the and earliest king of the dynasty, to return the favor to Sumer, but he attacked it to defeated Ur. But Elam ruled Sumer for the next 350 years. That's what they did. Elam was a lot stronger, or should I say, the Elamites were a lot stronger than the people of Ur because they have a stronger, vast, diverse culture. And then you see the BCE Elam kings holding the 1400 BCE. Then you have the Elamite king 1200 BCE as well, and the Elamite god in Shushak, the lord of Susa, 2300 BCE. It's a long time ago. Elamite rule was broken when King Susadad of Kish defeated the Elamite. These appeared the new ruling house of Elam, but the Simash dynasty, the Simash may have made in the mountains of the southern Luristan, southern Luristan, and most notably, the events of the period was the virtually conquest of Elam and the king Su, Su, Shulagi, the Shulagi of the third dynasty of Ur to 2094 to 2047 BCE. But eventually the Elamites rose in a rebellion, overthrew the third Ur dynasty, and the event of the long remembered in the Mesopotamian Dinges and Omen texts. But about 1900 BCE, power in the Elamite passed in the new dynasty that the Aparti, the third king of this, is Shurgaduk, and was active in various military coalitions, but against the rising power of Babylon by Hammurabi, 1792 to 1750 BCE, but was not to denied, and Elam was crushed in 1764 BCE. But the old Babylon kingdom, however, fell into the rapid decline following the death of Hammurabi, and it was a long before the Elamites were passed to gain revenge. But the Elamite king Kuti Nahunti the first attacked the Samsa Hulanu. I'll say Samsu, 1749 to 1712 BCE. Hammurabi's son dealt with the serious defeat in the Babylonians that the event remembered more than 1,000 years later in the inscriptions of the Assyrian kings. But Astra Banapal or something like that, Banapal, but it may be assumed with the stroke Elam once again gained independence. But the end of the Aparti dynasty, which may have come in the late 16th century BCE, is buried in silence. So yes, this is Elam. This part one. We ain't gonna go further into it. So yeah, we're gonna stop it right here. What do y'all think? I'm just gonna talk to y'all for a minute, just a minute, just 25 minutes in. I'll say a couple minutes. Um, this period is actually a decent period, right? We talked about Sumer a lot on this channel, and you can watch all the parts, and it mentioned this all the time. And Elam is mentioning that research as well, connected to it, because they right next door to each other back then. So if you read the scriptures, you already know the kings, the dynasty, you get this research right here connected with the scriptures and the tetragrammaton. You name all of it. So basically, I want to cover this in parts. Part two will might not be long. Just keep that in mind. I might record that sooner or later and drop it early because I think me talking about it is a good thing. And in part three, I'll give y'all like the next week a full day to understand what's what. So when you talk about recordings and when you talk about pleasantry powers, you're talking about research that mattered to certain people, right? Elam was one of those countries, one of those cultures that you had to really get in tune with what's what, right? And then you understand that I started talking about them years and years ago and studying scripture and everything, and this research as well, and extend my research. Like these people had a vast culture, and it was something. And then the Persian Empire, it talks about the whole period. It didn't really die; it extended, became the Persian Empire later. After the Babylonian period declined, then they started. They were still in it. They were a bigger country. That's why Iran is what it is today. Yes, they have a Marine Corps and all this other stuff, and they ain't got the basic military, but they got Ayatollah Khomeini. But we ain't gonna get into that. So we already know what's going on over there, and they're not related to those people. That's a whole nother story. So with that, shalom to the people of Israel and the Gentiles. Until next time, as always, and I'm out.